This is Coda Radio, episode 286 for December 8th, 2017. Hi everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and its related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on, but for a moment, if I could, I'll tell you about us. My name is Chris, and join us every single stinking week, because it's his damn show, it's our host, Mr. Dominic. Hello, Mike!
Misa here, you dirty mother! Oh, wait, Jar, you know, in your corner.
Ever since you got down to Florida, he's been coming back. Have you noticed that? Well, I think he came back via a boat or something.
Listen, let me tell you something. There are two reptilian creatures living with me in Florida. Jar Jar Binks, who is too dumb to know that he did something wrong, and I call him Uncle Y, otherwise known as Master Yoda.
There's a lot going on today. Are you like... I am tingling with anticipation for today's show, because not only is it
so much,
286, which reminds me of one of my first favorite Intel processors. So
Order 66.
That's what? And we've got a new recording setup we're using, so there's some technical changes here on the back end. And the first show I've recorded with the new studio dog in studio right now. We got a studio dog this week.
And what kind of dog? That's the most important thing. You buried the lead.
It's a little terrier mix, a little 12-pound terrier mix. He's over in the corner chewing on a stick right now.
He's a puppy wuppy. I hope he barks.
You know,
my dog
hasn't barked. I haven't had him for maybe even 12 hours, maybe more. But he has not barked yet. He has not barked yet, except for he gave a little woof when he got into the junkyard for the first time, and we let him run around because we have the whole thing fenced in. He got a little woof, but.
So long-time listeners will know that I used to have a beagle.
Oh, they howl, don't they? Ow.
Oh, he was my man. I think poor Rikai was editing out howls half the time when the FedEx man. And now I have two little what are called Tibetan Spaniels.
Oh.
They don't howl as much as basically order you around as though they were cats.
That is a funny way to put it. Go
get me water, kind of thing. But no, congratulations on the new pup. Now, what compelled you to buy a pup for the studio?
Well, it's a rescue. So what happened is down in Texas, there has been just tons and tons of flooding, just a few months ago. But that's the lag time it takes to rescue these dogs and then start distributing them throughout the country. And so the rescue centers around here are just overwhelmed with dogs from Texas right now. And so we've been thinking about it just because, we got the 3 kids he could play with, and we travel around in the RV, and so it'd just be really... And I work here at the studio, so, I let him go in the backyard and play around. So, it seemed like a good... It seemed like we could do it. Like, if, we were candidates possibly. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm excited.
See, this is what's great about you and I, fellow conservatives, protecting people out of charity.
Oh, you're looping me. Now you see, I don't want to be in your. What do you call it? What do you call that?
Join
I don't want your. I don't buy into your Pepsi Coke reality, young man. That's what it is.
Oh.
You're corporatist. You have corporatists and you have corporates. But we shouldn't. I was going to say before we really start off the show, I've noticed that you've sort of had a coming out of recently, or not recently, but a more and more evolving coming out. Yeah, you're letting your conservative flag fly, which I find to be fascinating considering it's almost like more polarizing than ever. So it seems like if you're ever going to be a closet conservative, now would be the time. But I applaud, I guess, your coming out.
So I did not intend to talk about this today, but we can do that if we want.
Because Twitter. Should we save it today? We could save it, and if we get through everything else, I don't know, because we do have a lot to cover today.
I think what people.
Let's bust it. Let's do it.
So a little behind the music here, right? I base what I put in the show notes purely on tweet replies, right? So even if they're hostile, angry, go kill yourself in a bathroom in Penn Station tweet replies, I guess we should still respond.
Or how dare you was the other one you might get from whatever it is. How dare you?
So I I am a firm believer in low taxes and military spending, right? Like good military spending. And that's probably where that ends. But it's so interesting to see how, especially in tech, how polarizing these views have become.
Yeah, I think I would say if there's a common leaning, it seems in tech it would be probably liberal, just because you got your Googles and your Apples, which are major players, and they're pretty publicly about their political views.
Which is weird, though. They're publicly about like their social views, but they'll fight for a tax cut like everybody else.
Well,
right?
That is true. Yeah, yeah. It's all, yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, it is true that I do
follow you to a degree, because it's like, if you want to know what it's like to own your own small business, I'll sum it up to you in just one phrase.
I'd rather hear your perspective.
It's the holidays, so what I'm doing, of course, is I'm saving up for taxes next year.
Yep, that's what I'm.
Yeah,
like so Christmas is not a gift-giving season if you own a small business. It's more of a how much am I going to be shooken down?
It's more of a guilt-inducing. It's a period of guilt-inducing where I, as somebody who used to make what I consider a decent living doing IT contracting, to where I was 1 year for my mom's birthday, I bought her an iMac for her birthday, and I would get my dad like something cool. Like I was really very generous because it was nice to be able to give back to my family. And so now I'm coming up with like, here's a $25 gift certificate to Outback Steakhouse, Dad.
Yeah,
and I just feel awful about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're triggering me, man. Quarterly payroll taxes.
Well,
but it's a thing. So like, okay, all I will say is that
when you own a small business, you just have a different perspective a lot of times, or even a large business.
When you sign the paychecks, you realize that like abolishing a bunch of taxes would actually make you hire more people, right? And that only counts for really small companies, because I get it. Big companies do all kinds of crazy shit in Ireland, like the Irish double Dutch, whatever.
Yeah, and if you cut their taxes, they just buy back more stock.
They just buy back more stock. But like when you're the sole owner of the company, it's like your stock is worthless. Mm-hmm. So.
And there is a ton of small businesses, so it could make a big difference.
Yeah, it's a thing. Like my Obamacare is going up to $1,200 a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how this. And boy, we really should. This is, I guess, the reason why we're talking about this is because this is legitimately the aspects that you have.
No. This is legit. Like this is the art and business. This is the business side. So I was gonna hire 3 people in the next 90 days, and I'm now not going to hire.
Oh, so you're gonna. I guess you probably should. I've decided mine's going up too. By almost $200, and that's on top of
more than double. Yeah. So I'm losing all of my subsidy, plus it's going up.
And I have a $5,000 deductible on top of that. And so, and the thing is that Hadia owns her own business too, and she and I are both pretty convinced we're not going to buy health insurance. It is, even though she has diabetes, it is cheaper for her to just pay for her stuff out of pocket off of Amazon than it is to pay for insurance. And then she's going to pay for alternative care out of pocket. This isn't something that we've come to lightly. This is on top of taxes and what we're paying as small business owners for our own purse, because nobody's helping pay for our insurance, right? We're paying for all of it out of pocket.
Right. Well, I'm paying it all out of pocket. Right. That's exactly what I'm doing. Right. For Laura and my son Reese.
Really,
right?
I'm at a point where if anything else were really to change dramatically, I got no room to give. Like I'm giving up my health insurance, and this is not something I'm just doing on a whim.
Yeah, so it's interesting. The conversation went differently in our household because so with the heart condition, which is called tricuspid arteria, the way you die is, this is the clinical term, sudden death. You just fall down.
God, really? Well, I guess in some ways, I'll take that over long suffering.
No, it's quick, but the problem is you could also take a heart attack that quick, as I did once before.
Yeah.
And the last time I did that with no insurance, it was $75,000.
Oh yeah, I know.
So, I'm in a position where this is not a free market. They could ask me for virtually any amount of money, and I'd have to pay it.
Well, see, right? I feel like because of the deductible and the cost, the yearly cost.
Oh, I'll pay my entire deductible. Yeah, I'll pay it's like $6,000.
For sure. If I was paying my deductible every year, the thing is, I haven't paid off my deductible in 6-7 years. So for 6 or 7 years now, I haven't paid off my deductible. And so to me, it's a different. It's almost like if I went in even with health insurance, I'd probably be bankrupted. So I kind of get bankrupted either way. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm bankrupted one way and I'm bankrupted the other way. But one way is a for sure bankruptcy, and the other way is if something awful happens to me that hasn't happened in the last 6 years.
When I was in the hospital, and we were doing the show in 2015, I took 2 heart attacks. I literally thought about filing for bankruptcy, but didn't, because you can't discharge student loans.
Oh yeah.
Like, that was the only reason I didn't just do it.
That's a topic for a whole another show. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, let me put it this way. Jimmy Kimmel went on TV and bitched about his son with a heart condition. I have a much worse heart condition, and Jimmy Kimmel has the money.
You better move to Canada, dude.
No, it honestly, these are the things, like, and I've been listening. All right, let me just hit this. Can I hit this real quick? Yeah. So, like, I've been torturing myself listening to Ezra Klein and Crooked Media and Vox and all that shit. They talk about pass-through corporations as though they're like some crooked enterprise. Most small businesses that can be S-corps, which is what a pass-through is, or an LLC, right? Most of them are like the local guy who makes you muffins. Mm-hmm. Like, let's not be silly here. There's a big difference between large companies that employ tons of people and have tons of money, and
the burger place, the coffee shop, the auto parts store.
Right. And let me tell you what the big difference is: the relationship with their bank. I have enough money in the bank right now, theoretically, that I should be able to buy, I could buy a house, right? But my bank won't talk to me. Because you're too small, you're too unstable. Mm-hmm. That is the difference, right? The difference is businesses with credit and businesses without.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what their capital position is. That is the only difference.
Yeah.
So, particularly, like, I'm from New Jersey. Before he was president, the current president, he did all that shit on credit. Like, in Atlantic City in particular. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. None of that was cash.
Right.
Like, not a penny. You, I think, are like me, and you operate on a purely cash basis.
Yeah, or Bitcoin converted to cash.
Right. Well, you hit it when you struck on Bitcoin. I did not believe in it. I still don't believe in it. But so, like, in a lot of ways, when you're operating in a real cash economy, things are more constrained. And that makes these outrageous healthcare costs, outrageous taxes, just like completely untenable. And that's the end of the Ezra Klein show for today.
All right. Well, then should we get to the tech of this part of the show? We got some feedback from last week where Mike and I took a few days on Windows 10 after Mike got the HP Spectre. And we went back and forth on setting up our workflow, some of the impressions we had, some of the things we were impressed by, some of the things we found to be challenging. And Asphyxia Web says, please give me a wasted year back. I just did the same thing. Don't tell anyone, but at the end of the day, I ended up buying a maxed out MacBook. He says, I got Arch, I tried Dell, Developer Anything, I did Hackintoshes, I did Windows Subsystem on Windows 10. He says, it was just a huge amount of unproductive time I spent on trying to get a cheaper laptop working that barely got me 5 hours of battery life. And then he said some of the solutions don't even touch some of the apps that he likes on the Mac, like Airmail 3, which is his favorite email program, Photoshop, etc. He said he tried setting up QEMU. That's a virtualizer with GPU pass-through, but of course after a kernel update things would break and he wasted 10 hours trying to fix it. So he said, sure, I could have saved $1,500 by going with the $1,700 PC. But after a year of trying to get a workflow working under Windows 10 with the Linux subsystem, Hackintosh, Ubuntu's, and Arches, I just couldn't get the workflow right. And at the end of the day, I maxed out a MacBook Pro. I have it hooked up to 4 monitors. I can sign iOS apps. I can compile Android and Mac apps and run some of the most intuitive workflow processes I've ever seen. Alfred and Homebrew, hello. Love the struggle, though, but it kind of hit close to home. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just recently installed Alfred myself.
Oh, really? So what is Alfred? I don't really... Is Alfred like a launcher?
Alfred is... Yeah, it's like a launcher. I use it to replace Spotlight.
Okay.
Like I actually have it take the command space keycap.
Is it a good launcher? I wouldn't classify Spotify as a great launcher in my experience. I don't use it a ton, but I wouldn't.
You mean Spotlight?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, sorry, Spotlight.
Yeah. So Alfred does everything Spotlight does a little faster, and with additional automation things. So you can write like scripts and workflows for Alfred.
Ooh.
I am not that hardcore into it. I just like the fact that it's simply faster and more reliable.
Yeah, and it's just like a keystroke away and bam, you're going.
Right, it's command space away.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so Alfred, huh? Well, maybe a few Mac users out there, give that a try.
You have to get the Power Pack. There's like two products, Alfred and the Power Pack. The Power Pack gives you a lot more flexibility.
I feel like there's so many tools out there for the Mac these days that you could end up handicapping yourself in a way by depending on all these different tools to make Mac OS usable. But, I suppose as long as you don't have to reload that often, it's not a big deal. It just seems like to me the further you stray from the defaults, the more fiddling you have to do when you set up a new rig, and the less comfortable you are when you sit down at a completely fresh rig for some reason. But, as long as you can still get your work done, I suppose it doesn't really matter. That's the only thing I worry about. Like, I like the one thing I did like about Windows 10, looking back at it, is, and Unity does this too, but just had a really, really fast launcher. It was way faster than Unity's. It seemed faster to me than Spotlight was. So I could understand installing Alfred, but I just wish Spotlight was a better launcher. So then you wouldn't have to add anything to the default install. That's just my opinion. Now, Indie Tech Trekkie writes in and said, welcome back to the Microsoft Drug Guys. All kidding aside, I think Windows 10 is pretty darn good. I love the Linux subsystem, which I've actually gone a bit crazy with and loaded GCC and G++. I have old C programs that I have, and I have a VC++ compiler that I can also use. And if you're a fan of Qt, there are some awesome PowerShell scripts that make the static build far less painful to set up. I haven't booted my MacBook Pro in a couple of months. Yeah. Well, if you're looking to buy a used MacBook Pro, maybe go contact Indie Tech Trekkie in the sub. He's there. Just go reply, hey, I'll buy it from you. So there you go. So there's one guy that said Windows 10 didn't work for me. One guy that wrote in that said that Windows 10 did work good. And then you know what? We had a good handful of people that said, I tried the same experiment. I also ended up on 1604. I think almost all of them went with Ubuntu 1604. I don't think I heard anybody say Fedora or Arch, which is interesting.
Yeah, no, so what's weird to me is a lot of people gave feedback, ended up either on Ubuntu 1604 or Mac OS.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Very few people ended up saying, yeah, Windows 10 all the way. And I got to be honest, the only laptop I took on my trip was my Mac. And the laptop I've been using day-to-day since has, in fact, been my drumroll.
I'm going to say Lemur.
How about MacBook Pro?
Wow, I'm shocked. All right. Well, then here's our last bit of feedback before we get into...
Wait. Are you really shocked, or
no?
Do you feel like you've seen this coming?
Well, if you didn't have iOS things to do, then I would be a little more surprised. But there's just a sort of a practicalness to it, because the other thing about the MacBook is that you almost guaranteed, if you bought one in the last 3 revisions, you're going to get a decent CPU, and you're going to get really fast competitive storage, especially on the most recent ones. And so... That is a good recipe for virtualization. That's a good recipe for building software. It's just a good mix there. So it's not surprising because it is competitive on those grounds. And then when you add an iOS app signing, it just seems like unless you could virtualize Mac OS to some sort of satisfying degree on other platforms, you don't really have a choice. What do you think?
Yeah, that's the problem. I found I was experimenting with all kinds of solutions to get around code signing, and the truth is, like, none of them work.
Yeah. Maybe those will get better too, right? You never know. All right, so last email into the show here. Coding Cowboy says, "Hey, do you guys need help with the Roku app? It's been a while since I've done anything, but I have written private channels for Roku. I mentioned recently that our Roku app is in disrepair and needs either to be completely replaced or taken over." He says, "For now, I get around the Roku channel by using your torrent feeds and then streaming them to my Roku boxes via Plex. I think a lot of people do that, or Kodi." He says, "It's not been too much trouble, but maybe I could build something around the torrent feeds for other shows and then a Roku channel for that, and you guys could put it up on GitHub and the community could have access to it. Just let me know what I could do to help. Love these shows, Coding Cowboy." Coding Cowboy, if you wanted to start on a Roku project, boy, would I love that. It'd be even greater if you were able to coordinate with the community. If you go to discord.me/JupiterColony, we have a development section in there for Jupiter Dev and for Coder Radio. You can join the Jupiter Dev chat, start talking with people as you build. As you create the repo, you can sort of disclose and let everybody know right there. It's a good resource for all of that, and we would love to get the Roku app working because it seems like more and more people are getting Rokus. Because I've been hearing people say, "Hey, the Roku app doesn't work." I know. And that's the problem when you don't build it yourself. But we just don't really have a development budget, So we do rely on the community for those kinds of things and appreciate it very, very much. All right, so I guess I'll give a little spiel for feedback. If you want to get your feedback, probably the two best methods to get them in the show legitimately would be Twitter, adding Mr. Dominic or myself, and the subreddit, coderradio.reddit.com. Now, I know not every one of you are out there signed up with Reddit and Twitter accounts. You're not a big fan. So we also have good old email at jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact, which you can send us an email. We generally tend to collate those because it's not necessarily as easy to link to it or put it up on the screen or whatever it is. So jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact if you want to send in an email. Now, before we get into some hoopla for the week, which I think you're going to enjoy, Mr. Dominic, we will mention Linux Academy. linuxacademy.com/coders is where you go to support this show and sign up for a free 7-day trial. That's going to allow you to log into the platform, look at the different courseware, get an idea of what it's like to set a schedule, get an idea of what it's like to spin up the virtual machines or how long it's going to start a new course. It's a platform to learn everything about Linux and cloud stuff like OpenStack and Azure and AWS and all the things that come along with that too. In fact, one of the things that I've heard a lot from people more is that they've switched over at their work. I was just mentioning recently that DeBill in the Hair Care channel in Discord said, hey, my company now just started a program that when you come work in our IT department, you get access to Linux Academy. It's great, too, because there's instructor mentoring. So if you get stuck, there's a real human being that can help you. There's public profile, sort of almost like a GitHub page in style where you can complete your achievements and things like that, and you get to post it there, and you can link that to prospective clients or employers. And they have video courses and downloadable study guides and lesson audio, and they have iOS and Android apps, a vibrant community stacked full of Jupiter Broadcasting members, because they've been an advertiser here on this show for a very long time. It's just a great fit because if you're building something on top of Linux, if you're building something that needs to run on a web platform or on Azure or AWS, or if you need to learn the essentials and the basics about a Linux system, this is a great resource. And they're adding new stuff all the time. linuxacademy.com/coders, and a big thank you to Linux Academy, linuxacademy.com/coders. Thank you, everybody, for going to that URL too and supporting the show. So, this is how unicorns trick you into thinking you're real. This is a great article, and I just highlighted a few things. Mr. Dominic found it, and I read through it, and I was like, yeah, this is what's going on. It's all smoke and mirrors here. So unicorns aren't real, and neither are the valuations ascribed to many of the startups that say they're worth $1 billion or more. All right, and let's let this sink in for a second. About half of the private companies with valuations exceeding $1 billion, known as unicorns, wouldn't have earned that mythical title without the use of complex stock mechanics, according to a study by business professors at the University of British Columbia and Stanford University. The chasm between public and private valuations is a topic of increasing prominence following several disappointing listings. Among them is a company you may have heard of, Blue Apron, which traded well below the price venture capitalists paid in the fundraising round. An often overlooked explanation for the divide is actually buried down in the investor contracts. Blue Apron, which delivers meal kits to customers at home and then you just assemble the meal, gave stock preferences to some shareholders in 2015 in exchange for a $2 billion valuation, according to the study. Now, a convertible loan this year included a provision that offered equity at a discount to the IPO share price, and investors took advantage of that mechanism. Now, there's other tricks too. Another common tool is known as a ratchet. It allows private backers to boost up and get more shares if a company fails to meet a target share price in an IPO. So they all of a sudden, boom, get a whole bunch of more shares. That happened to Square when they went public. And there's several others. The study looked at 116 quote-unquote unicorns and found that after 1994, with an average valuations of $2.7 billion, wow, researchers found that 11% of companies, including HomeAway and Solar City, use preferential stock to boost their valuations to more than twice what they would be worth using the study's fair value estimates. And this is super important, I think, because this is what contributes to the big hype bubble about quit your job, build an app, and go huge.
Yeah, so in our little political rant that we'll get lots of feedback on, that's fine, thank you. We're not going to. I mentioned real money versus play money, right? That's the difference, right? It's real money on the public market. It's play money for a lot of these venture capitalists. And it's even more real money if you're a true small business.
Okay, I completely agree so far. Yeah. Yeah, and it's and then of course these people that are giving you money stack it in their favor with these clauses and these ratchet agreements. I mean, it's like the
ratchet backs. Yeah, I would actually say I don't have a lot of sympathy for the founders here, because they do more than that. They hurt legitimate small businesses that just don't have the capital to like buy the marketing power that they have.
Yeah, but I mean, put yourself in their place for a second. I mean, imagine that somebody comes in and starts sweet talking you and saying, we could invest a couple $1 million into this place. How do you, after years and years of getting by, how do you turn that down?
So, well, one, on a seed round, that world basically doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I did have someone offering us some money, and I said no, because it just isn't enough money. Like the problem with venture capital right now is since the market has cooled, you're like, okay, if you could get like FU money to operate your business for 2 or 3 years and build a product, great. But if you're only going to get like $200,000,
right,
$300,000, that's not enough with developer salaries. Like you're just not going to make it.
It does feel like, though, this contributes to a hype bubble in a way that sort of perverts a market. It perverts a community. There's a real in California in particular. There's a real culture down there about changing the world. My startup's going to change the world. We're the Uber for food. We're the Uber for groceries.
I am not insulting the good people of San Francisco again. I got some heat for that.
Okay. All right. So that's Hoopla number 1. This is a good article.
I agree completely. Ooh.
I would say check it out. We have a link in the show notes if you care, but I want to move on to something that got people more fired up. Speaking of your Twitter feed today, this got quite a bit of replies. Google is pulling its YouTube stuff, and I say stuff because it's not just the Amazon TV, but it's also like on the Echo Show, which I don't know if that's considered an app, but no more YouTube on Amazon devices. And Google is not happy. Now, of course, Amazon's Prime Video service, which I guess technically does compete with YouTube, hasn't been made available for Chromecast, so you can't Chromecast it. Amazon doesn't sell the Chromecast, has recently removed the Nest.
That's actually the issue. So the supposed issue here you can read this on like a bunch of sources, TechCrunch, whatever, is not that Google gives a shit that you can't watch YouTube on the Amazon devices, because really, who would? It's that Amazon won't sell the Google devices.
Yeah, the Nest and the Home on the holidays too, which I'm sure they're extra upset about.
It is a weird thing for me. I mean, I'm curious how you feel about this, but this is I can see both sides where like Amazon is using their increasing dominance over one market, online retail sales, to I mean, frankly, Amazon Video sucks, right? I mean, if you've ever used it, it is by far the lowest quality video service of the major ones. I mean, people bitch about iTunes. iTunes is much better.
Well,
and I think iTunes is the second worst.
So Amazon took the first shot by never enabling Chromecast support, which would be a good feature for their customers. And they also took the first shot by never selling the Home and by taking the Nest off the shelves. So I guess that's 3 first shots. So I'm all on board about some Google hate here, but let's be real. Who is the repeat offender? Which company can you still not buy audiobooks or Kindle books on iOS because they don't like that platform? And they just crapped out.
No.
I know why. Hold on, let me finish. No, hold on. I'll get there. I'm getting there. And they also just crapped out a real piece of junk Apple TV app, which is a real shame because Hulu actually managed to show them up, which is pretty pathetic. And what Google or what Amazon has a history of is not accepting the rules of the playground of the playfield that they're in. So they, if they want to, what are you talking about? It is user hostile not to support Chromecast. It is user hostile to not let me buy Kindle. It is 100%. The users are the victim because Amazon doesn't want to pay a cut to Apple. I can't buy books because Amazon.
30% is not a cut. 30% is mafia style extortion.
I agree. It's not. I agree. It's not appropriate. But I'm saying them's the rules. And then the other thing is that what about this Chromecast stuff and not ever selling the Google Home and taking the Nest off? These are all these are repeat offenses. It to me kind of seems like if you look at Google, they have a history of basically doing the best they can on any major platform. In fact, to a degree where I think some of their I think some of their iOS apps are better than some of the Android apps. Like it takes them a while, but eventually they
can't. All right, I'll let you finish. I'm just going to mute and let you finish. Then I'm going to go.
Okay,
that's fine.
So what was one of the first apps that shipped for Apple TV? One of the first apps that shipped for Apple TV. What was it? It was YouTube. One of the first Maps applications, one of the first search applications on iOS, it was Google. And the thing is like if you look at the Google app, if you look at Google Maps, sometimes there are feature disparities, but over time the iOS apps become extremely competitive versions of the Google app. Like the Inbox app is great on iOS. Like they don't cripple their competitors' platform version of their apps like Amazon does. Amazon intentionally cripples the apps. Google's like, all right, well, if we're going to play in this field, then we're going to follow the rules and we're going to make the best app we can so that way we get them on our services. Where Amazon is looking at, well, we just want to sell you shit and we want to make the highest margins possible. And those two different motivations are resulting in, I believe, Amazon being the hostile force in this situation because they've played hardball with Apple. They had to, the rumor has it, if you believe John Gruber, the rumor has it that they had to get very special exceptions to get the Apple TV app to ever even ship, including like some great story about the hoopla that they all had to go through to even make the Apple TV app ship. I don't know what it is. He doesn't either, but he says there's some great story there. And then you look at the fact that they're not selling these products. I conclude my case saying Amazon seems to be the obvious aggressor here.
Okay. So, first of all, I don't like the use of the term aggressor. This isn't like the Vikings roll over the innocent monastery here. This is Godzilla versus Mothma versus Godzilla #2, right?
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah. They're all a bunch of behemoths. I agree.
I'm just gonna go through my hate list in alphabetical order. Amazon has basically hollowed out retail. Right. And they continue, and you are correct in your criticism, like they continue to violate people's rules. And
remember when remember the big hoopla we covered when they launched their app store and they just determined when the apps were going to be essentially free?
Right, because really Amazon has taken the commoditize your compliments commoditize your compliments business rule and made it like an article of faith. Right? Like all businesses that sell on Amazon are there solely for the purpose of serving Amazon.
Yeah.
They may not know it. They may think it's a great channel, but more and more Amazon's taking control, particularly with their pricing on Alexa, where they give better pricing to products that sell on Alexa.
Yeah.
And they force that on some of their retailers.
But you triggered my LadyTube. You just gotta call it Echo or LadyTube.
I call her Alexa every time.
Cancel.
Let's talk about Apple for a moment, who promotes and, more importantly, demotes or unpromotes or delays developers and content producers they don't like this show.
Yeah, but then look what I agree, and that has.
And
I know,
personally.
but yes, okay. I'm not. I guess I'm not trying to make a defense.
Model had. Just hang on. I gave you time.
All right. You're painting me as an iOS platform defender. I wasn't.
No, I'm not painting you as that. I'm painting you as naive. Like part of the reason.
Fair enough. Okay.
Part of the reason I turned away from like pure iOS development was I got the message when my Mac updates took 30 to 45 days to go through, right? Mm-hmm. And Coda Radio got thrown off the feature chart. And I started getting ripped apart by Mac developers and reviews. I got the message.
Yeah.
That, by popular like bloggers that you are not part of the club, get the fuck out. Like, listen, if I was a WASP, I would love the old English clubs where you sit and drink scotch all day and because your daddy was a knight, you do all this shit. That's what the Apple community is.
Yeah, I agree.
Google is even worse, I find the Apple community more insulting because it's a little more personal for me.
Yeah.
But the Google idea is worse. Nothing matters except data. And if you can make money, great. If you can't, meh, we're going to make a free version of your product anyway in a month. So they're all evil. And I would say that they're all equally evil. Like, I have a little bit of sympathy for Apple in this case because you know what? I wish I would have made different. Like I might, if I could look back, have censored the show to stay in favor.
But I see this as Amazon Sherlocking a video service because they have their own competitor now. And so it's like it makes the Amazon platform just as hostile. And not that this is a big surprise, but it makes it just as hostile and risky because if they decide to, who's to say that Next isn't Ring once the Amazon key starts selling like crazy? They could take Ring doorbell off the marketplace. It just seems like a pretty dangerous precedent.
Apple can't promote people who are their former employees in the App Store.
Yeah, but at least when
or who write coverage of them on well-read Apple blogs.
Right, but at least when they launch a new redone version of Safari, they don't pull Google Chrome from the App Store.
See, it's not. First of all, they do pull Google Chrome has never been on the App Store. Google Chrome, version of Chrome on the iOS App Store is not really Google Chrome.
All right, okay. Fair.
It's a version of it's like
a compromise. Yeah, it's a compromise. Yeah.
So you're really making a fictitious argument, and I would even go further in saying that at least Amazon's honest. Amazon says, "Yeah, fuck you. You're a competitor. We don't want you there." Apple says, "Oh no, you can be here. Well, but we're going to really review your apps, and if we find something,
are they though? Because here's what Google says. This is Google's side. Google says we've been trying to reach an agreement with Amazon to give consumers access to each other's products and services, but Amazon doesn't carry Google products like Chromecast or Google Home, and doesn't make Prime Video available for Google Chromecast users, and they last month stopped selling the Nest's latest products. Given this lack of reciprocity, we are no longer supporting YouTube on the Echo Show and Fire TV. We hope we can reach an agreement to resolve these issues soon, which is why I also think they set it towards January, is because they're hoping that they can just get a reaction and fix it. But even right now, if you launch the app, Chris Simpson tweeted this, he waited 3 years to get a Fire TV in Canada. They finally go on sale. He launches the YouTube app for the first time, and he gets an error message that says, starting on January 1st, 2008, the YouTube app will not be available on this device. You can continue to enjoy your favorite creators and videos in many other ways. Please visit, and they give a Goog short URL, for the list of devices you can use. And this is coming up now when you launch it on the Fire TV. And that's a real shitty thing. That's a real shitty user experience when you've been waiting 3 years to buy a Fire TV. You plug it into your TV, you launch YouTube, and you get that. The thing is everybody's the users and developers are the losers here. That's what it is, and it just drives me crazy.
This is a lot like the whole net neutrality thing, right? Should the platform owner be the content provider? And the real problem is Amazon owns a retail platform, and they are now a content provider. Yeah. Well, actually, the provider of a content platform. So Amazon's got it like Meta, right? They own the hardware,
right?
The tubes that goes through the software on top of that, and in some cases, they own the actual content.
Massive scale streaming's locked up, I think, at this point between Amazon and Netflix and Hulu and YouTube. Nobody could launch an independent video network anymore. The only person that can compete now is somebody that has essentially a business model where streaming video is a secondary benefit to having huge data centers and unbelievable bandwidth. It's getting really locked up.
Well, it's like all markets, right? The big, even like the app development market. Like I bitch about Apple, but really Apple's not the one who screwed that up. Eventually, the big companies came in and said, "Yeah, actually, we do think that apps should cost like $3 million to make, and we're going to just like invest more than you can."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I guess so. Yeah, Apple didn't make them do that. I don't know where to go from here, just other than it seems like as a user or as a developer, you're left with this like matrix in your head of which devices now work with which services, which ones are capable of easily deploying your software to and have a low barrier of entry for users, which ones don't, which ones support, say, skills, and which ones support. It's just the matrix is huge if you map it all out. Which ones can play Spotify versus which ones can play YouTube versus which ones can play Amazon Prime Music or Google Play Music, and which ones can play Apple Music. Like, it's just this huge, like, if you look at any aspect of it, It is too complex to work. It's too complex for the consumer. They are killing this LadyTube market. They are murdering all of this by adding too much complexity. It is worse than cable television, because at least at cable, there was just some really ridiculous price you paid for, and you just got everything, even the stuff you didn't want. But now, with all of this shit, you can buy a $300 LadyTube and another $300 LadyTube, and they can't even do the same stuff. There's no end to and they all have different services attached to them to even make them useful. There's no end to the cost, and there's no end.
Wow, it sounds like you're suggesting open standards.
What I'm suggesting is what went from a really practical, useful, like I can use it to control my studio and automate my RV, and there's tons of, I think, ripe, low-hanging fruit for developers around there, is now going into this convoluted dumpster fire that is going to turn consumers off.
That low-hanging fruit was never there because there's never a good way to monetize it.
I think that, you know, I've said this before, and I say it again, is I think there is a way. I just don't think Amazon has a way. I think Google and Apple have a way, is you attach it to the existing app stores. Because all these things have companion apps. It's an in-app purchase. It's an in-app purchase. It's a you enable support. Here's an app. You've had this app for years. Your to-do app. I like Things. I love Things. Say Things came out and said for $3.99 you can integrate HomePod. I would absolutely hit that button
for Android or for iOS or for whatever.
Say the first part again. You cut out a little bit.
I already have to be on the app market then, so I already have to be on the Google Play market or the iOS market. Yeah. So, see,
that's just like saying you have to be on there to make a watch app or a Wear app.
I forgot who wrote it. Was it oh my God, Surfing at the Pleasure of the King, that really famous blog post from a few years ago.
Yeah, I remember it.
At the time, I really agreed with it, and people told me I was crazy, but it was coding horror, so it was what is it, Jeff? I apologize, I can't remember his last name.
Yeah. If you remind me, I can search for it and put it in the show notes later.
Yeah, I have the link. I just can't find his name.
Oh, okay.
He was complaining about Apple's policies as a Microsoft guy, seeing how foreign they were. But the reality is, everybody has adopted that model now.
Which model is that?
Basically, this is our sandbox. You just play in it.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So it's weird for me, like, because like I have railed against Apple and what I perceive as both like personally being treated unfairly and, you know, their general treatment of like people they don't like.
Yeah.
They're so petty that it doesn't matter. Right? Like the way to avoid, if you are a, 18-year-old future podcaster and developer, is just don't like say anything bad about Apple and they will be nice to you. Mm-hmm. You can't undo pissing them off, but you can certainly like avoid it.
Yeah. And you can. There are ways to get into clicks too, right? There are like you could, if you have the money, if you can go to WWDC, if you can say the right things on Twitter and wear the right outfits, you could be part of the clique. You could make it part
too, right? You need to like, if you're slightly younger, as I was, you need to kind of kiss the ring a little bit, right? You need to take a more submissive whatever position. But
here's the thing, though. This is probably true to a degree for all of these sandboxes, all of these playgrounds, and that's the point.
Apple is actually the least pernicious of all of these now, because you know what Apple wants? They're basically in a marketing shop, right? They are run by their desire to keep their image. Google and Amazon are much more evil, like particularly Amazon, who wants to not just put developers out of business. They want to put like your local grocery store out of business, like your local Target or Publix.
Apps as a service. Yeah, I agree. And the other thing too, that if you want to game Apple, you make a decent looking app, and then when the new iPhone 10 comes out, you make a big update splash and say, designed for iPhone 10, and there's a pretty good chance you're going to get featured. Like it's a pretty easy game to play. Now, I'm not making a defense of it again, because what I want to come back to, the bigger meta topic here to me is, they all want you all in. So if you're an Amazon customer, then you go all in on stuff that only works with the Echo. It's like the music, the Amazon Prime streaming, the video. You get a Fire Stick TV. They expect you. What their dream is that you go all in. Same with Apple. You get a phone, you get a Mac, you get a HomePod, you get an iPad. Microsoft has their same, with, oh, geez, my nose itches, sorry. They all have their sort of like expectations that they're the only game in town that matters and that they have all of the bases covered. So why wouldn't you just go all in? And the reality is none of them have all the bases covered. So nobody can go all in on any of these things. And so it is a total cluster F. I go back to that because at the end of the day, it's going to kill the market. And that is my point on it, I guess. I know I've said it, but it's just really upsetting to me because I went from a total hater and doubter. I think this is why I'm fired up about it, actually. I went from a complete doubter and denier that these lady tubes had any value. I mocked them. I doubted their security, their NSA surveillance devices. They're a trend. And then when there was a sale, I thought, well, I like to really kind of, dog food this stuff because if I'm going to get a strong opinion about something, I really want to try it. That's why I always maintain like an Android device and an iPhone device. And I always try to make sure it's a Nexus device or a Pixel device that can get the latest updates. And I really try to eat my dog food so that way when I come on this show with an opinion, it's, Chris has probably formed that opinion because he tried it. Not because he read a comment thread somewhere, not because he read a review somewhere, but it's because he tried it. And so I sat down with these lady tubes when they put the dots on sale, like a 3-pack or something, and it changed the way I work. It changes the way I work every single day, across the day. It changes the way I use my home. It has solved problems for me that I never even considered possible to solve. So I'm a convert in a way, and so it's really disappointing to see them their greed just totally devastate real opportunity.
Is that really shocking to you?
No, but damn it. Like, why are we still doing this in 2017? That's all. This is what happens on a Friday. See, I get all saucy. We haven't really talked about why we're doing this on Friday. Do you want
all weeks are rough.
Do you want to talk about it in a minute? I could do a spot here, and then we could talk about why we're doing this on a Friday, and then I got an app pick we could do.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so DigitalOcean.com. Go over there, create your account, and then apply our promo code CODERDIGITAL. This will give you $10 in credit. Now, one of their rigs is just $5 a month, so that's 2 months right there. You can also just use it hourly, including machines that have insane amounts of RAM and CPU speed. All of the systems have SSDs. They all have 40 gigabit connections. They're all using KVM as the virtualizer hypervisor, where you can go in there and choose a distribution that works best for you, or FreeBSD. You can get started in less than 55 seconds, too, which is nuts. Just maybe a year before we started this show, it took me 2 weeks to provision a server. It took me, and when we launched Jupiter Broadcasting, all of it was running on physical metal in racks that were machines that I had to maintain that took weeks. And if there was a problem, it took somebody going to the rack and hooking up a crash card. And now you can deploy infrastructure in less than 55 seconds. You can expand the RAM as you need it. They have block storage or object storage, which is so simple and straightforward to use. Team accounts if you're growing or want to work in a business. Monitoring and alerting that keeps you on top of metrics and lets you know if something's out. Load balancing as a service done at the network level, along with firewall rules you can apply. It's really the whole package. But what's incredible about it all is they managed to wrap it all up with the best interface I've ever seen for doing this. It's the gold standard. DigitalOcean has a straightforward, simple API that you can build around as well. So if you're not a web person, you don't want to use their website, you can use an app or you can use the command line stuff. It's just there's so much there for people like the Coder Radio audience. Just go over there, get started by using our promo code CODERDIGITAL, create your account, and then play around. Just create some systems, destroy some systems, go deploy Nextcloud for a few minutes, go try out GitLab for a hot minute. It's great. DigitalOcean.com, use the promo code CODERDIGITAL, and a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring this here Coder Radio program. Boop-a-boop. So, before we get to the app pick of the week, which is pretty cool, came in from Chaotic Kernel, who is crushing it in the subreddit right now, crushing it. And so I had to grab the app pick. But why are we recording on a Friday? You been traveling again? You a traveling man?
On the road.
You're back home now, I guess, or at the office or whatever? So you're done traveling?
I'm in the office with my good coworkers, Charlie from Cuba.
Sure.
Luis from Tampa.
Yeah.
And some slave boy I found on the street.
So you're saying this is like a boy run you went on? What?
I went down the Horn of Africa. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, you went to California? No.
No.
Hey,
yeah, you know, my good friend Matt Lauer recommended a young man to be.
No.
Too soon. No, I was in New York, and
okay.
It was terrible.
Oh yeah, cold.
Everything
or what?
was bad. First of all, I'm pretty sure people don't live that long up there anymore, because I think it's gotten 400 degrees colder.
Yeah, I've heard it's really cold right now.
Yeah, and also, remember I was going to that conference?
Yeah.
Let me tell you about every session I went to.
Uh-oh. What?
Dead air. So I didn't go.
Oh, okay. So you still went to New York, though?
Correct.
Okay. Just for hookers and blow, or what?
You got it in one.
Are you fooling me? What are you really up to? What's going on over there? Because I know you were traveling, right?
I went to some meetings, but I ended up not going to the conference.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. You know, you got to go with your gut on this stuff, especially as you start traveling more. Just got to go with the gut.
You know, I didn't have the appetite to pretend to be nice.
Yeah.
Is really what happened, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a listener of the show, you might know that I'm already not nice. But not everybody's a listener of the show, surprisingly, at these conferences, and they kind of expect me to be a person. I mean, what's that all about?
Well, actually, and sometimes if you run into somebody that is a listener of the show, you know, you don't want to have them walk away with a bet. You don't want them to meet you and be like, "Oh, that guy's a dick." You know.
I just say, you want to go to the bar?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, then just give them some more time to warm up. Just give them some time.
I've been spending 5 years setting the expectations really low.
All right, so you ready for this app pick? You ready for this?
Go ahead.
So it's kind of neat. I know we've been talking about Visual Studio Code on and off. It seems to be getting a lot more love. So this is Thea, a cloud and desktop IDE that's Visual Studio inspired. Now, the team that wrote this was trying to solve a problem for themselves. They like Visual Studio Code, but they wanted something that could be web hosted. I think it might be TypeScript here, but anyways, I'll get to that. They wanted something that could be web hosted and containerized. So that way they could spin up a container for each project they're working on with this web-hosted cloud IDE. So it's Thea, an extensible platform for developing full-fledged multi-language cloud and desktop products with state-of-the-art web technologies. It's early days, but it's got a modern GUI with JavaScript UI libraries, support for multiple languages and debug server protocols, provide end-user with full-fledged multi-language IDE. It's not just a smart editor. And it looks nice. It actually looks a lot like Visual Studio Code with the, I don't think you could call it IntelliCode, but with the same style of code prediction and stuff like that. It's nice. You can find a link in the show notes. It's up on GitHub, Thea IDE, and it's also linked in the coderradio.reddit subreddit. And I'm pretty sure, did you know Visual Studio Code is written in TypeScript too? Are you aware? But I'm pretty sure this is as well. I didn't actually dig in, but I'm...
Yeah, I deny that completely.
Let's see here. I wonder. They have a front end code they have some code from Visual Studio for the front end or something. Anyways, it could be worth digging into. It looks pretty cool. Thea. I like it. Kind of sounds like a dog name, actually. All right, Mr. Dominic. We just did a Friday show. Now, what do you want to do next week? Should we pick it back up on Monday and just kind of do them back to back? Get back to our regular flow?
Monday. You
want to go back to Monday at our regular time?
Monday.
So that's noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Over at
that's right.
jblive.tv. Join us for the Monday show. Get in the chat room and hang out with us. And we'll be back to our regular time now that Mike's no longer a traveling man. Anything else you want to plug, skis, or mention before we hit the road? This is your last moment.
No, but
All
I'll
right.
have some fun stuff Monday.
Tell them where to find you in the meantime. Tell them where the URLs are.
Go to @Tumanuku on Twitter and themadbotter.com.
Boom. Boom. Pro level, ladies and gentlemen. Pro level. All right. You can also go to that subreddit, coderradio.reddit.com, the live stream at jblive.tv, the times converted to your time zone at jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. And you can also tweet us. I'm at Chris LAS and at Jupiter Signal for the network. And we'll see you right here, not even a week from now. We'll see you right back here in 3 days. Have a good weekend.